Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're taking a look at another ranking. We'll compare all the alien civilizations and races that attempted to conquer our planet. Some of them even tried to annihilate humanity completely, and a few actually succeeded. There are countless films built around this idea, so we can classify these invaders and evaluate their abilities, weapons, anatomy, hierarchy, invasion methods, origins, and motivations. Along the way, you'll also get answers to several important questions. For example, what exactly is Clover? Many people believe that this monster was born on Earth. However, at the end of the film, we are shown an old recording dated April 27th, in which an object can be seen falling from space into the ocean. I promise, this is going to be interesting. You understand the idea, so let's begin. Who is the strongest? Top alien invaders, Part 2. In 13th place, and the weakest creatures in this ranking, are the parasites and their queen from the faculty. Unfortunately, it is impossible to determine where the queen came from or exactly how she arrived on Earth. This information is simply not available in any source. There are only a few brief references to the creature's home world.
You know, in my world, Casey, there were limitless oceans as far as the eye could see. Beautiful home till it started to dry up.
The surface of their home planet was once covered by vast amounts of water, but for reasons unknown to us, all that water eventually disappeared or evaporated. That is why the species chose Earth. Our planet was perfectly suited for colonization. First, it had an abundant supply of water. Second, the human race provided ideal hosts for the parasites. More than half of the human body consists of water, making it a perfect habitat for a parasite. The creature can survive for a long time without a host, although victim would probably be a more accurate term. Until it finds one, the parasite can feed on its own. Using its mouth and digestive organs, it can even reproduce independently through division. However, the organism can only survive in water. If there is not enough of it, the parasite enters a state of suspended animation and can wait a very long time for ideal conditions. When a victim is nearby, it enters the body using its tentacles. It usually prefers the ear canal, which provides the closest route to the human brain. The tentacles connect to the brain and the entire nervous system, allowing the parasite to take complete control of its victim. It can also access the person's memories and imitate normal human behavior. Once inside the body, it feeds exclusively on water. It processes all of it without expelling any waste. This is a subtle detail, but perhaps that is exactly what caused their home planet to become completely dry. The parasites are also capable of rapidly regenerating their hosts' bodies. We are even shown what happens when a host's head is separated from the body. A direct gunshot to the head is not fatal to the parasite either. The host also becomes much stronger and more resilient. But they do have a weakness: a lack of water, as well as an intolerance to substances that cause dehydration. In the film, the weapon used against them was a drug containing a substance that dried out the body. However, their greatest weakness was not found in the parasites themselves, but in their queen. She was significantly larger and could assume the form of other organisms. She also possessed a high level of intelligence, but if the queen is killed, all of her offspring die with her, even those created through division. In other words, the survival of the entire colony depends on the life of its queen. We saw something similar with the Tao Te in the Great Wall, where the entire horde was controlled by a single queen. Because of this major weakness, these invaders deserve only the last place in our ranking. Next on our list are the Arachnids from Starship Troopers, taking 12th place. This species has a huge variety of different forms. First, there are more than enough types of arachnid-like bugs. They have warrior bugs that overwhelm their enemies through sheer numbers. They feel no pain and continue fighting until they are completely destroyed. Their aerial forces consist of hopper bugs. This is a subspecies of the standard warrior bug, but it is equipped with razor-sharp wings capable of slicing a person in half. Their heavy assault units are the tanker bugs. These enormous armored creatures can spray a highly flammable liquid that melts everything in its path, even metal. The arachnids also have artillery units. This role is performed by enormous plasma bugs. They form plasma charges inside their abdomens and can launch them all the way into outer space. These bugs were able to alter the trajectory of an asteroid and direct it toward Earth. When it struck the planet, an entire city was destroyed. There are also ordinary worker bugs and, of course, the brain bug. It gives the orders and serves as the intelligent life form behind the colony. It communicates through telepathy and can even use the power of its mind to make a human brain explode. And then there is the god of the Arachnid civilization, Behemocoatl. It is a colossal bug that lives beneath the surface of a planet. The creature's size is truly extraordinary, as it can occupy nearly half of an entire planet. It can store all of the Arachnids' knowledge and communicate telepathically with other colonies, even those located on distant planets. Of course, the films did not show every type of bug described in the books and games. There was also an enormous transport bug capable of flying through outer space and carrying arachnids to other planets for colonization. They reproduce in the same way as insects, through a queen. She is capable of laying up to 20,000 eggs every day. Although this species possesses every type of military unit, it has no machinery or technology whatsoever. Because of this disadvantage, humanity has been able to fight them successfully using firearms, aircraft, bombs, and missiles. They do not even deserve a place in the top 10, but they are still a fascinating species. In 11th place is the byum from Dreamcatcher. This is a very unusual alien species, and the strangest thing about it is its reproductive cycle, which takes place in several stages. Its initial form resembles a fungus. When it comes into contact with a living organism, it infects the host. However, the carrier must have a sufficiently large body mass. The fungal spores ignore insects and birds. Once inside the body, a serpent-like creature begins developing within the intestines. It eventually escapes from its victim through the path of least resistance. The process resembles the birth of a neomorph in Alien, Covenant. However, a neomorph emerges upward, depending on the position of its host's body. The byum, on the other hand, escapes from the intestines through the body's excretory opening. The newborn serpent can later lay eggs, from which smaller creatures hatch. Once fully grown, it possesses several unique abilities. The first ability is telepathy. The second is hypnosis. They can enter a person's mind and take control of their consciousness. Interestingly, humans perceive the byum as a humanoid creature. This is a subtle psychological trick because such an appearance does not disgust people and feels more familiar to the human subconscious. This humanoid form of the byum is known as Mr. Grey. It resembles the classic grey alien with a slender body and large eyes. To restart its reproductive cycle, an adult byum can make its own body explode, transforming it into fungal spores. This means that only one individual is required to begin the entire process. The species possesses no conventional weapons. Perhaps this is connected to the alien's anatomy, but then how were they able to construct such complex spacecraft in the first place? In my opinion, humans are far stronger as a species. The human military has repeatedly destroyed every byum spacecraft it encountered. As alien invaders go, I consider them a fairly weak race. In 10th place are the Formics from Ender's Game. Humans call them buggers, referring to their insect-like appearance, but the species itself is known as the Formics. The history of this civilization is incredibly rich. Originally, the Formic homeworld was divided between constantly warring hives. Each hive was controlled by a single queen, who fought against every other queen without forming any alliances. Even a newly hatched queen would fight her own mother to the death. Their civilization truly began when one mother queen managed to persuade her daughter not to fight her. Together, they ended this senseless conflict and discovered the benefits of joining forces. This immediately made their faction stronger than all the others, because two queens had never joined forces before. Each daughter of the new queen then persuaded her own daughters to work together. After several generations, the descendants of that first visionary hive queen destroyed every rival hive and spread across their entire home world. From that point on, the Formics expanded into the stars and began colonizing other planets. At first, they carved massive starships out of asteroids, including vessels such as the Formic Ark. These ships did not possess near light speed drives, so reaching their destinations took generations. Over the following centuries, however, the Formics continued to improve their methods of colonization. Eventually, they developed egg drives, which enabled travel at near light speed and allowed them to colonize other worlds much faster. Because the hive queens possessed advanced knowledge of genetics and inherited memories, they analyzed the genomes of native species and modified them whenever necessary. This allowed the Formics to establish complete control over their colony worlds. They also used terraforming to reshape planets for their own species. When the Formics arrived on Earth, they immediately began terraforming it because they did not understand that the planet was inhabited by intelligent life. During the Second Formic War, they finally realized what they had done and withdrew their entire fleet from orbit around the planet. The species itself is highly intelligent, but that intelligence primarily belongs to the Queen. The drones, workers, and soldiers serve the collective mind and are incapable of making independent decisions. In the film Ender's Game, humanity managed to destroy the main Formic colony. However, Ender was able to find a hive queen larva. During the events of the novel Speaker for the Dead, he found a suitable planet for the Formic queen and helped her establish a new civilization, one that remembered its past mistakes and everything Ender had done for its species. But because humanity was able to commit xenocide against the Formic race, I still consider them a relatively weak species. The same cannot be said about the Invaders in 9th place.
They need gold. To them, gold is rare, just like it is to you. They are studying your weaknesses. These are just scouts. If you let them live, they will return and then everyone will die. That's what they did to my people.
In 9th place are the demons, the alien invaders from Cowboys and Aliens. They should not be confused with the Covenant from the Halo video game and television series, although their appearance does resemble one of the species belonging to the Covenant. These aliens are highly advanced, as demonstrated by their technology. The film shows only a single scout vessel. Its mission was to gather information about the planet, determine what resources were available, particularly gold, and identify the intelligent species inhabiting it. The demons also conducted experiments on humans, studying the human body and searching for weaknesses in our species. The demons are also well armed. They possess small, compact fighter craft, which they use to scout the area surrounding their landed ship. Their bodies are protected by armored plates covering the shoulders and back. However, their strangest anatomical feature is an additional pair of limbs. When the plates around the chest open, a pair of small, three-fingered arms emerges from inside. These smaller hands allow the creatures to handle more delicate objects. Their primary arms have long claws instead of fingers, which they use to impale their victims in combat. However, opening these plates also exposes the creature's heart, which can be seen outside its body. This makes the alien extremely vulnerable. Despite all their technology, the soldiers and workers appear to be remarkably unintelligent. In one scene, they simply charge towards certain death. Most likely, only one individual possesses a high level of intelligence. This is the creature that conducts experiments on humans and wears the plasma-powered wrist weapon. Small hive-like chambers can also be seen in the center of the ship. They are probably used as suspended animation capsules, but the strange details do not end there. When the demon's main ship takes off, it relies on conventional rocket engines. In other words, this supposedly advanced species was unable to develop gravitational propulsion or warp drive technology. Either this was a careless oversight by the filmmakers, or the species simply has not advanced far enough to create such technology. Because of all these strange limitations, the demons take 9th place in our ranking. The next race also made many mistakes during its invasion of Earth. I am talking about the Martians from the War of the Worlds. There is a great deal of information about this species. The main idea behind the film was taken from Herbert George Wells's novel, The War of the Worlds, which was first published in serialized form in 1897. It was the first novel to imagine an invasion of planet Earth by a more intelligent civilization. And thanks to that idea, you are now watching this wonderful ranking. The aliens' home planet was of course Mars. Its increasingly harsh conditions became the reason for their invasion. Lower average temperatures, the spreading ice, and a thin atmosphere unsuitable for breathing. Interestingly, despite all their scientific and technological development, their civilization somehow failed to invent something as important as the wheel. That is why they used tripods during their invasion. These enormous towering weapons of destruction move on 3 long legs. They are armed with a heat ray capable of completely incinerating a living organism. They are also protected by powerful force fields. The Martians themselves are relatively fragile creatures. They move using 3 limbs, with only one of them serving as a leg. They consume only liquid food and have no chewing teeth inside their mouths. They also feed on humans, although it would be more accurate to say that they drink them. The Martians can simply consume human blood, but they usually process living organisms into a kind of nutritious smoothie. They mix the remains with an unknown substance and spray the mixture across the planet's surface. As a result, the ground begins to become covered in mold. This is most likely their method of terraforming. I give the Martians only 8th place because they made an incredibly foolish mistake. They failed to check Earth's atmosphere for viruses and bacteria. The novel states that the Martians have no immune system at all. How they managed to survive on Mars is difficult to understand. One theory suggests that wherever life exists, viruses will always be present. But then again, that is only a theory. Now let us continue with the ranking. In 7th place are the Grasshoppers from The Arrival, released in 1996. I was unable to find the species' official name. If any of you know it, please tell me in the comments. This nickname was given to them by viewers after watching the film. It comes from the aliens' unusual knee joints, which bend in the opposite direction. Their strange anatomy reveals a great deal about the invaders' homeworld. First, they come from a planet with an extremely hot climate. This is clearly demonstrated in the film, as the aliens have secretly begun terraforming Earth by gradually raising its temperature. Deep underground, the invaders produce greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming, gradually making our planet more suitable and comfortable for their species. The aliens also have no sweat glands, so their bodies do not produce sweat and cannot cool themselves naturally. During their evolution, this biological function simply became unnecessary. The star at the center of their system is Wolf 336. It is much larger than the Sun, and its temperature is 40% higher than that of our star. Their home planet has an extremely hot and dry climate, and most likely has no winter season at all. When moving, the aliens can jump like kangaroos. This method of movement suggests that their home planet has very little vegetation and few tall trees. In that kind of environment, jumping would be an extremely fast and effective way to travel. The species itself is far more advanced than humanity, as demonstrated by its method of occupying our planet. There is no military invasion fleet and no conventional war. The aliens can replicate the human body, while their high intelligence has allowed them to infiltrate the highest levels of government. Under this disguise, they are slowly terraforming Earth. Humanity will eventually die as the climate changes. Once that happens, the aliens will send a signal to their homeworld confirming the successful completion of their mission. Thousands of ships carrying new colonists will then arrive at their new home, where the climate will closely resemble that of their native planet. The Grasshoppers deserve credit for their intelligent approach to conquering Earth and defeating humanity. A sequel was released in 1998, but it was significantly worse than the first film. The element of surprise was gone, and the story itself was terrible. In 6th place are the Regents from Battleship. Their home planet has a simple name, Gliese 581G. It is almost identical to Earth, with a similar atmosphere, air, climate, temperature, and liquid water. The main difference is its position within the Goldilocks zone. The star at the center of the Regent system is colder and less luminous than the Sun. That is why Gliese 581G orbits relatively close to its star. The Regents themselves are remarkably similar to humans. They possess respiratory organs, a mouth, teeth, and a generally familiar anatomy. In one scene, fingernails can even be seen on their 4 fingers. For unknown reasons, a war broke out on their planet, eventually making Gliese uninhabitable. But then humanity sent a signal. In 2006, the Regents realized that all hope was not lost for their civilization. One of their reconnaissance flotillas traveled to Earth to determine whether our planet was suitable for colonization. The Regents are far more advanced than humanity in terms of science and technology. Their ships, known as Stingers, are heavily armed. The mothership can also generate a force field so powerful that even radio signals cannot pass through it. Regent soldiers wear armored exoskeletons that increase their strength and endurance. The only feature of Earth that does not suit them is the brightness of our sun. Without their special dark and protective helmets, they are almost completely blinded by sunlight. Their pupils resemble those of reptiles. They also have 2 additional nostrils on their faces, which serve as olfactory organs. The Regents have no hair covering their bodies. Instead, stiff quills grow from their chins. Their purpose is unknown, but if you have any theories, share them in the comments. The Regents' most distinctive characteristics are their emotions and behavior. When they encounter an unarmed civilian or a child who poses no threat, they show remarkable restraint and refuse to harm them. There is a theory that the Regents were not hostile when they first arrived on Earth. At that point, they used only a defensive force field and a sonic pulse. However, once humanity launched the first attack, the Regents quickly decided to fight back. They had not been given enough time to assess the threat or even understand humans as a species. They ultimately paid the price for that decision, as humanity managed to defeat them in battle. However, the force that reached Earth represented only a small part of the alien fleet. The planned sequel was supposed to reveal the Regents' full armada and the true extent of their weaponry. Unfortunately, Battleship was a complete box office failure, so the studio abandoned its plans for a sequel. Personally, I enjoyed the film, not as serious science fiction, but as a solid blockbuster with impressive CGI, spectacular effects, and more grounded alien weaponry. There were no lasers or blasters, which deserves a major point in the film's favor. The shredders looked especially interesting and spectacular in action. Sadly, we will never see a sequel to the film, but the same cannot be said about our ranking. In 5th place is Clover from Cloverfield, 10 Cloverfield Lane, and the Cloverfield Paradox. These 3 films belong to the same cinematic universe and depict an alien invasion from different perspectives, with their events taking place at roughly the same time. Each story simply presents the invasion through the experiences of different characters. I will not use the manga as a source of information. According to its version of events, Clover had lived deep within Earth's oceans for around 1,000 years. The creature had supposedly spent its final years in suspended animation at a depth of 10 kilometers. The Tagruato Corporation discovered its location and constructed a research facility disguised as an offshore oil drilling platform. Their activities eventually awakened Clover. Many video bloggers present this information as fact. I agree with the part concerning Tagruato. The company appears throughout all 3 films, and Clover did destroy its oil platform. However, I do not agree that Clover originated on planet Earth, and I have evidence to support my theory. There is one important moment at the end of the film. The recording is dated April 27th, 2008. If you look carefully at the sky in the upper right corner, you can see an object falling into the ocean. According to director Matt Reeves, this is Clover arriving from outer space. I will try to slow down this moment so you can see it more clearly. If you have never noticed it before, then you owe me a like and a subscription. Whenever I tell people that the end of the film shows Clover falling from space, everyone I know starts arguing with me, and I always win that argument. The director later confirmed this information himself. Tagruato knew about the creature and constructed its platform in that area. However, according to the viral marketing timeline, Clover destroyed the Chuai drilling station on December 27, 2007. The manga also claims that Clover was eventually killed by a nuclear explosion. In the film, however, the monster survives missile strikes, aerial carpet bombing, and even an atomic bomb. In 10 Cloverfield Lane, we see alien ships hovering in the sky, their silhouettes illuminated by flashes of lightning. According to one theory, these invaders created Clover and used creatures like it as biological weapons. The Cloverfield paradox takes place in a parallel reality in the year 2028. After the Shepard particle accelerator is activated, it tears open the boundaries between dimensions. Its effects may have traveled through space and time, triggering events in different realities, including the invasion of Earth in 2008. At the end of the film, an enormous Clover-like creature burst through the clouds. In the original Cloverfield, director Matt Reeves said that Clover was still just a baby. But in the Cloverfield paradox, we may have seen what a fully grown specimen looks like in all its glory. There is also a theory that the invaders never traveled to Earth through space. Instead, they may have entered our world through an interdimensional portal created by the Shepard particle accelerator. I agree that the Cloverfield universe is one of the most confusing and mysterious cinematic universes ever created, and that is exactly why I like it. In fourth place are the Legislators, also known as the Hedgehogs, from Captive State. In classic fashion, we are given almost no information about these aliens. We do not know where they came from, the history of their species, or even how they spend their time. Their anatomy is extremely unusual. Their entire bodies are covered with quills, which normally remain relaxed. But when a hedgehog senses danger, every quill rises to form a protective layer of spikes. These quills are also venomous. However, they can be torn out along with pieces of skin without much effort. The alien spacecraft resemble meteorites and asteroids. It is a very strange form of camouflage for such an advanced civilization. Their main objective is neither colonization nor the extermination of humanity. They only want our resources. In the film, they manage to defeat humanity in an incredibly short time. They shut down every communication system, along with the electricity and water supply. Once humanity realizes that it cannot continue fighting under these conditions, the hedgehogs offer a ceasefire, but only on their terms. Every human is fitted with a tracking device, allowing the aliens to monitor them. People are also used as free labor to build mines that extend deep underground. These mines can be found in every major city, and their purpose is to drain our planet of all its resources. The Hedgehog's elite units use exoskeleton suits and advanced weapons. At the beginning of the film, we are shown one of the weapons in their arsenal. It can destroy people from a distance, reducing them to ash. According to additional material released for the film, China refused to accept the terms of the ceasefire and went to war. Within minutes, the Hedgehogs used a single warship to melt every piece of military equipment, including tanks, aircraft carriers, and even submarines. A very powerful species that managed to defeat humanity in just a few days fully deserves fourth place. Who do you think made it into the top 3? And now, the bronze medal goes to the aquatic race known as the NTIS, from the 1989 film The Abyss. First, we need to clarify something. The film has 2 versions, the theatrical cut and the special edition, and they are radically different. In the theatrical version, the aliens appear friendly, unarmed, and harmless, but the extended version reveals their true intentions and explains why they came to Earth. And as you have probably guessed, their goal is annihilation. They reached this conclusion after studying human history, nuclear testing, an endless series of wars, and humanity's inability to learn from its mistakes. Using their technology to control water, they created enormous tsunamis. They were prepared to wipe out humanity and completely reset the planet. But Bud managed to change their minds, so the aliens decided to give our civilization one more chance. And that was a serious mistake. Very little is known about the species itself, but we can draw many conclusions from its anatomy and technology. In my opinion, their homeworld must resemble Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Its entire surface is covered in ice, with a vast ocean of liquid water hidden beneath it. This could explain why the alien life forms use bioluminescence. There may be very little light on their home planet, or perhaps it simply cannot penetrate the thick layer of ice above the ocean. Their anatomy and evolution are perfectly adapted to life underwater. They have fragile, translucent bodies covered with numerous fins. And here, I have to give James Cameron credit for the amount of thought he put into the appearance of this species. Their mothership is also incredibly impressive in size. When we connect all these details, it becomes clear that their civilization is far more advanced than humanity. They use telepathy to communicate with one another. However, they appear unable to establish the same kind of connection with other intelligent life forms, such as humans. The inhabitants of the Abyss have also learned to control the shape of water. They can do almost anything with it, from creating enormous tsunamis to reproducing the smallest details of a human face, including smiles and facial expressions. They are an extremely advanced and powerful species. If they can control water at the molecular level, they could easily defeat every creature in this ranking, as long as its body contains water. As you have probably guessed, the two leaders of this ranking do not suffer from weaknesses like these. In second place is the Tet from Oblivion. Just think about it. If a species is highly advanced, why would it travel to another planet, fight a war, and waste enormous amounts of time and resources? Why not study the planet remotely without anyone noticing, and then send in a massive spacecraft controlled by artificial intelligence? It could analyze the situation, make all the necessary calculations, and act entirely on its own. Why land troops on the planet at all? Why carry out a prolonged bombardment when you can simply destroy the moon? The moon has an enormous influence on Earth's entire ecosystem. It is responsible for the tides and affects certain ocean currents. After its destruction, enormous tsunamis, earthquakes, and other natural disasters would do most of the work. Questions like these can be raised about almost every invasion in this ranking except the one shown in Oblivion, a brilliant victory over humanity. This is exactly what an attack by a highly intelligent civilization should look like. On top of that, the Tet skillfully used humanity's own nuclear weapons against them. It cloned some of the best members of the human race, implanted false memories in their minds, and invented an entirely fictional version of the war. The clones were led to believe that the surviving humans were nothing more than scabs. They were given the illusion of victory and, without suspecting anything, continued working for the occupiers. They believed that all the harvested resources were being used to support the human colony on Titan, one of Saturn's moons, where the evacuated survivors had supposedly adapted to life. Brilliant. I have nothing more to add. Unfortunately, we do not know who created the Tet or who sent it to Earth. There are countless theories and speculations, but the Tet still failed to account for the sheer power of Tom Cruise, and that is why it was destroyed. And now, the well-deserved first place and the absolute winner over every species from every ranking is the Coalition. From the day the Earth stood still. The exact number of civilizations within this coalition is unknown. Some sources claim there are more than 100, while others say there are only around 7. I managed to find the names of a few of them. The most advanced are the Kargs. While their ministers and leaders are humanoids, the coalition is represented by Judge Klaatu. His task is to oversee the complete annihilation of humanity. But the most interesting part is their weapon, the enormous biological robot known as Gort. Gort can produce sounds at different frequencies, disable electricity and radio signals, and fire lasers from the visor on its head. On top of that, it appears to be completely indestructible. Humans tried drilling into its body with tools made from the strongest available materials. They also exposed it to extremely high temperatures, but none of this caused any damage, not even a single scratch. And most importantly, Gort is made up of nanobots. They consume everything in their path. Metal, glass, people, absolutely everything. At the same time, they can replicate incredibly quickly. In just a few minutes, their numbers can increase tenfold or even hundreds of times over. They would consume the Tet from Oblivion within minutes. The aliens from the Abyss would be unable to destroy Gort because its body contains no water. No parasite could ever turn it into a host. Clover, the Xenomorphs, the Regents, none of them could destroy it. Even the Thing would have no way to assimilate it. Whether Gort has any weaknesses or whether it is vulnerable at all remains unknown. But based on the information available to us, I consider it completely unbeatable. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. But my verdict remains unchanged, an absolute and undisputed first place.